I was ejected from my mother-in-law's home because she didn't agree with my choice to give birth at my parents' house. With only my phone in hand, she aggressively took me out of my jammies before even letting me put on shoes. I made a quick call to my mother, who lived nearby, and I waited for her at a nearby diner. Upon discovering the occurrence, my mother and sister became enraged and promptly started activities that would soon cause problems for both my mother-in-law and my spouse. I am Emily, and I am 29 years old. I wigged 31-year-old Jerry a year ago. Jerry's father runs a big business, and he's being prepared to become the next CEO. He's working at one of their smaller branches right now to gain experience. Jerry and I met at work, and it wasn't until just before our wedding that I learned about his family's business empire. I was totally taken aback when he revealed that he was a candidate to become the next CEO. After he gave his explanation, everything seemed to fall into place, and I found myself married to a future CEO since he was so self-assured and popular. Jerry moved to the main office of the company after we were married, and I kept working. With an encouraging expression, my father-in-law told me, "I've heard you're a young leader at your workplace. Keep up the good work." My mother-in-law, on the other hand, had a different perspective and questioned why a wife would disregard her home in order to work. She was very much against me getting a job. I was mistaken when I assumed that living apart from Jerry's parents would prevent any disputes. When they said they wanted us to live together, that's when our problems started. Jerry loved our shared residence as well, especially after my father-in-law noted how busy he was and how beneficial it would be to have someone there to take care of things. "I've always lived here, and I'm worried about Mom. It just wouldn't work for me to move right now," he said. I was in a situation where I was unable to decline when they brought up the agreement. "Since everyone agrees it's a good idea, Emily, do you have any objections?" said my mother-in-law. I grudgingly consented to move in with my in-laws after feeling cornered. The issues started when we were all living together under one roof. Despite working full-time, my mother-in-law began to make my life very difficult by asking that I quit my job and take on all household responsibilities. She had already shown dislike of my job. She insisted that I redo my cleaning if she noticed any flaws, like a stray hair or a dust particle. I first made an effort to clean more carefully and apply her remarks constructively. Her inspection, nevertheless, went beyond ordinary cleaning tasks, since I felt she was also inspecting areas that weren't often cleaned, like between drawers or behind the TV. I eventually took a stand for myself. I'm not able to tidy these spaces every day. I operate in the same manner as Jerry. There's no need to redo everything today, because I'll clean things thoroughly on the weekends, right? My response enraged my mother-in-law. She yelled, "How dare you talk back to me like that?" She called Jerry in a fit of rage, saying I had yelled at her and misrepresented my advice as aggressive, all while shedding a few tears for impact. I hoped Jerry would get smart and defend me. "Emily is working too, Mom. Perhaps you might show a little more empathy," I assumed he would remark. But the truth was unsatisfactory. "What made you so angry with Mom?" He agreed with her, saying she was merely attempting to assist. This remark made clear how differently our family expects to be supported and behaved. "Why are you getting upset, Jerry?" I said. In the end, he took his mother's side. At that moment, I understood that my father-in-law was the only person in that family on whom I could rely. But his regular absences from work meant that I had to handle the tension on my own. I quickly discovered that confronting my mother-in-law would just result in arguments that left me feeling defeated, because she would always complain to Jerry, who would not provide any assistance. I decided that the best course of action was to get out of the path of the conflict, and that the only way to keep things somewhat peaceful was to become quieter. I used this tactic to get through the year until I started having health problems, which made me go to the doctor. I was not only sick. The diagnosis revealed that I was pregnant. I told Jerry first, feeling both hopeful and nervous about the family's response. "You are aware of my recent health issues. I saw the doctor, and you know what happened?" I said, "I'm pregnant." "That's fantastic. I guess I'm going to be a father now. I'm eager. Is the gender known yet?" Jerry gave an enthusiastic reply. "Not just yet. Do you find it important?" I asked, feeling that there were unspoken expectations on his part. "It does, of course." "There must be a boy," he proclaimed. Jerry, being the only kid, seemed to think it was essential to have a boy to carry on the family business. "What if it's a girl?" Concerned about how this may impact our family relations, I wondered out loud. "Never fear," he'd informed me. "I'm sure it's a boy," but I wasn't convinced. We made the decision to hold off on alerting the baby's parents until a gender was determined. I was ecstatic to learn we were expecting a girl and didn't want to reinforce any gender stereotypes. But Jerry's response was everything but enthusiastic. "A girl? Are you sure?" "Get it checked again," he said, disappointment clear in his voice. His reaction left me anxious about how his mother would take the news. Despite his initial disappointment, I dreaded the conversation with my mother-in-law, wondering how we would navigate the challenges that lay ahead. Eventually, we knew we couldn't keep the pregnancy a secret from the in-laws any longer. I gently nudged Jerry to share the news. "Well, I'm pregnant," he told them. My father-in-law's face lit up with joy. "That's wonderful, Emily. We're finally going to have our first grandchild," he exclaimed with genuine happiness. However, my mother-in-law's reaction was immediate and pointed. "So, what's the gender?" she inquired. With slight hesitation, I responded, "It's a girl." "A girl? Huh? I hope she's as lovely as you, Emily," my father-in-law said warmly, clearly not concerned about the gender. But my mother-in-law's disappointment was palpable. "A girl, not a boy. It has to be a boy to make sense for Jerry," she muttered under her breath. I was taken aback by her reaction. But before the tension could escalate, my father-in-law stepped in. "Honey, why would you say that? Whether it's a boy or a girl, they are still our grandchild. Can't you just be happy?" He chided her gently. She seemed subdued after his reprimand, but I sensed her change in mood wouldn't last. True enough, as soon as my father-in-law left for work the next day, she confronted me. "Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can slack off on the housework. You're not planning to quit your job, are you? If not, keep up with your chores. Pregnancy isn't an illness, you know." Hearing these words from another woman, particularly one who had been through pregnancy herself, was startling. It made me seriously consider whether staying here was the right choice for my child. My family's home's about a 4-hour train ride away. Since my dad passed away early, my mom and older sister have been living there together. Perhaps if I shared everything with them, they might welcome me to stay. I began to feel that giving birth at my in-laws' place might not be the safest or most supportive option. I remembered that my family's home could offer a better, more caring environment. I decided to call my mom immediately. "Mom, it's me, Emily." "What's up?" she replied. "It's rare for you to call. What's going on?" "I'm pregnant, and I was thinking, could I come home to give birth?" "You're pregnant? You should have told us sooner." "Congratulations. Of course, you can come home for the delivery. But have you talked this over with your in-laws yet? Not yet, I admitted. Make sure you discuss it properly with them. If they agree, then I see no issue at all, Mom advised, stressing the importance of clear communication for the well-being of my baby. Encouraged by my mom's support, I decided to discuss the plan with my husband. I'm thinking of going home for the birth, I mentioned casually. Oh, going home for the birth? I guess that's fine, he responded nonchalantly. My mom's here, so things should be okay around the house. His quick agreement surprised me, but anticipating potential resistance from my mother-in-law, I turned to my father-in-law. After some thought, I approached him. I think it might be best for everyone if I went home for the delivery. Would that be all right? He seemed surprised initially, but then reassured me. If that's what you want, Emily, then it's probably the best decision. I won't oppose it. Could you perhaps speak to your wife on my behalf? I asked timidly. I'll tell her, he promised, seemingly supportive of my decision. With his backing, I secured permission to go home for the delivery without any issues. However, on the morning I was scheduled to leave, I woke up to find my packed luggage missing. My heart sank as both my husband and father-in-law had already left for work, leaving me no choice but to confront my mother-in-law. Do you know where my luggage is? I hesitated to ask. Oh, that luggage? I got rid of it, she snapped. I don't need a daughter-in-law who causes so much trouble. Don't ever come back, she shouted aggressively. Stunned by her harsh dismissal, I realized that returning to my family was not only a preference but a necessity for my peace and safety. As she pushed me out the front door, I barely had time to react. I hadn't even slipped on my shoes, clad in just my pajamas with only my smartphone in hand. I heard the front door lock behind me with a definitive click. It was a clear signal from my mother-in-law. She wanted me out, and there was no mistaking her seriousness. The thought struck me hard. If I lingered, that door might never open for me again. With this realization, I began to walk away, but the peak of summer made the barefoot journey outside nearly unbearable. Seeking some relief, I found refuge in a nearby diner. There, using the only possession I had, my phone, I called my mom. She was incensed by the situation and promised to arrive within an hour. Fortunately, she wasn't far away. I spent that anxious hour in the diner waiting for her. When my mom arrived, she didn't hesitate. She drove me straight back to our family home, where my sister was already waiting. I shared everything, the harsh actions of my mother-in-law, and the apparent indifference of my husband. My mom and sister quietly exchanged words, their murmurs leaving me wondering about their conversation. The next morning, being back at my family home felt like a breath of fresh air. When I went to fetch the newspaper, I opened the door to an unexpected sight. My mother-in-law and husband were kneeling outside. Emily, I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. Please don't sever ties with my husband's company, my mother-in-law pleaded. Emily, I'm sorry too. Please, can we continue doing business with my dad's company? My husband added, his voice filled with regret. Confused, I had no idea what they were talking about. Then suddenly, my mom and sister appeared from behind. What on earth are you two doing, causing a scene this early? My mom asked sternly, her voice cutting through the morning air. What does resuming business mean? She probed, wanting to understand their sudden change of heart. To avoid any further disturbance, my mom invited them inside. The atmosphere was tense, with unspoken questions hanging in the air. As we all stepped back into the house, once everyone was seated, My husband began to plead his case. "Would you please consider doing business again with my dad's company?" he asked. My mom and sister, who managed the company my late father had left behind, listened intently, curious about the details. I turned to my mom. "What does it mean that they're doing business with my father-in-law's company?" "Yes, they work with one of their subsidiary companies," my mom explained. "It's a major company within their group, second only to the main office, and their top client is your mom's company," my husband added, looking at me. This was news to me and apparently to my husband as well. I chuckled. That's news to me too. Reflecting further, I remembered something. Come to think of it, I recall my parents-in-law mentioning they've always been indebted to each other when they first met, I said. But the warmth of nostalgia quickly cooled when my mom interjected with firm resolve. "I cannot continue doing business with a family that would send my daughter out in such a state with just her phone. I'm stopping our business dealings." My mother-in-law begged fervently, "Please, I beg you," clearly shocked by my mom's revelation. "I'll take any action. Would you think about ending the business relationship with my husband's company again?" My sister chimed in at that point, grinning, saying, "You said you'd do anything, right? Thus, you'll consent to Emily's divorce. And of course, provide alimony and child support payments, correct?" Her words kept repeating in my head. I had discussed the matter with my husband only the day before. He answered in a contemptuous manner, "Isn't that what you deserve?" This insensitive comment had just strengthened my resolve. I found myself silently supporting my mother's choice. My love for my husband has completely vanished. If my sister hadn't brought up the topic so persuasively, I would have brought up divorce nevertheless. My sister's astute remark caused the dynamics of the conversation to sharply change in our favor. Reluctant as she was, my mother-in-law eventually questioned, "Will you resume business with my husband's company, even if it means agreeing to a divorce?" My mom took out her phone and made a call, grinning knowingly. She said over the phone, "It seems this lady here agrees to my daughter's divorce." My father-in-law's voice could be heard over the speaker, saying, "Got it. Jerry, you're fired, and I'm divorcing you, Maria." Those were the severe requirements he placed on starting up again. Additionally, my mother forcefully stated, "I cannot forgive the two of you for the way that you treated Emily. You two ought to be disciplined." My mother-in-law lost her spouse as a result of this unanticipated turn of events, and my husband also lost his job, money, and family support. The consequences persisted in the form of a contentious divorce between my in-laws, which was skillfully handled by my father-in-law's elite legal team. Assets were divided during the proceedings, and my mother-in-law ultimately compensated my husband and myself with a sizable amount. I also went ahead and got a divorce. It was no longer a possibility for me to live with a guy who was so influenced by his mother. My husband and mother-in-law caused me severe distress, and I was compensated for that as well as child support for our unborn kid. Their financial burden was so severe that they were forced to deplete their resources and ultimately incur debt. My now ex-husband found it difficult to find a new job in his prior area and eventually had to switch careers, moving into customer service, due to the strong influence of my mother and father-in-law. This highlighted the serious ramifications of the family strife and signaled a momentous and possibly humble shift in his career. But my ex-husband misjudged his new position in customer service, and he quickly received a lot of complaints, which resulted in his quick dismissal. He now lives with his mother and works 2 jobs a day to make ends meet. Thanks to my father-in-law's generosity, my mother-in-law and husband were formerly accustomed to a luxurious lifestyle. Nevertheless, They currently live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment. Their once close relationship has worsened, and they now dispute regularly. I occasionally ponder whether they still have joy or hope in their lives. With my mother and sister's assistance, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl at home in the interim. I'm excited to start a new chapter in my career and intend to join my mom's company as soon as things calm down. I did let my ex-husband know that our daughter had been born, but he hasn't said anything more or shown any interest. All I ask of him is that he pay his share of the child support due. I will not allow him to continue to be involved in our daughter's life going forward. Moving forward and enjoying a happy life with my daughter while having the love and support of my family is my main priority.